welcome to another episode of Everyday Black History. Today on Everyday Black History, we're going to be highlighting a woman by the name of June Baco Bercey. And she's an international expert on weather and aviation, and she's worked for different organizations, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the National Weather Service, and the Atomic Energy Commission. And she's believed to be the first African American woman to gain a degree in meteorology. Now, she was born and raised in Wichita, Kansas, on October 23rd, 1932, and she received her education in the state of Kansas. She earned her bachelor's degree in 1954 from the University of Kansas and her master's degree in 1955 from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. She earned a master's of public administration degree from the University of Southern California in 1979. She began her career as an engineer when she worked for the Sperry Corporation, and then she worked for a variety of federal organizations, as we mentioned before, the Atomic Energy Commission, the National Weather Service, and the National Meteorological Center. Beginning in 1979, she spent nearly 10 years as a chief administrator for television weather activities at the NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and she worked on a number of other projects as well. Now, increasing the participation of African American women in meteorology and geophysical science was a focus for her because she was the only woman who was in that field, or one of the few women rather, who was in that field at the time. And in 1978, she published an analysis of African American meteorologists in the United States. And the year before that, what's interesting is that in 1977, she actually was a contestant on the game show, The 128,000 Question. She did so well on the game show that she won $64,000 as a contestant, and she used that to establish a scholarship fund for young women interested in atmospheric sciences, administered by the American Geophysical Union. She served as the American Geophysical Union, the Committee on Women and Minorities and Atmospheric Sciences, and she also co-founded the American Meteorological Society's Board on Women and Minorities. She was also featured in a book for young people, June Baco Bercey, a meteorologist, talks about the weather. Because of her accomplishments in meteorology, she was highlighted in this book. She's also was the first woman, as well as the first African American woman, to be awarded the American Meteorological Society's seal of approval for excellence in television weathercasting when she was working in Buffalo, New York, in the 1970s. And it's interesting. She was the weather forecaster in Buffalo, New York during the 70s, and the only black woman on TV who was in that position. And it's interesting that she got the job for that because her predecessor, who initially held that position, got arrested because he was involved in robbing a bank. So because he couldn't show up that day because he was involved in robbing a bank, she took over and got the job and kept that job for nearly a decade. So his screw up was her gain, and she was able to be the face of the weather for almost a decade for the city of Buffalo. It's almost like Ron Burgundy and Veronica Corningstone. He couldn't make it. She stepped in and took over. Well, it was a real life example for June Baco Bercey. And it happened during the 70s, just like that movie did, go figure. But not to trivialize it by adding Anchorman into it, it's just interesting that how the similarities between real life and fiction. In 2000, she was honored during a 3-day conference at Howard University for her contributions, including helping to establish a meteorology lab at the Jackson State University in Mississippi. Her endowment of the scholarship that she started when she won that money on the 128,000 Question, and her work in California's public schools. She was also named the Minority Pioneer for Achievement in Atmospheric Sciences by NASA. So she's accomplished a lot, but what's so important is that scholarship that she started when she won that money. Establishing a scholarship for a young woman who's interested in atmospheric sciences. Again, who knows how many lives that she might have changed and how many lives she positively influenced by this act of starting the scholarship. Who knows how many women could have gotten into the meteorology field because of her. And it's because of that, amongst her many other contributions as a black woman, that we highlight her on June Baco Bercey, as well as everybody here on Everyday Black History. So June Baco Bercey, we thank you for your contribution to Black history and Black culture, and we salute you. Now that concludes this episode of Everyday Black History. As usual, please continue to support and tune in the YouTube channel, Everyday Black History, Everyday Black History on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and as well as the podcast that can be found anywhere you listen to podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Google, etc., etc. So please continue to support and stay tuned for the next episode.